Neville Goddard, 1953 lectures, Changing the Feeling of I. For the benefit of those who were not present last Sunday, just let me give you a quick summary of the thought expressed here. We claim that the world was a manifestation of consciousness, that the individual's environment, circumstances, and conditions of life were only the outpicturing of the particular state of consciousness in which that individual abides. Therefore, the individual sees whatever he is by virtue of the state of consciousness from which he views the world. Any attempt to change the outer world before he changes the inner structure of his mind is to labor in vain. Everything happens by order. Those who help or hinder us, whether they know it or not, are the servants of that law, which constantly shapes outward circumstances in harmony with our inner nature. And it's true, this is simply just how the way it works. What we're doing together is discussing this over and over and over, ad infinitum, hopefully not ad nauseum, but we're trying to fill in every crack and crevice so you gain a conscious control of your environment through changing your conscious awareness. That's what we're doing together. We asked you last Sunday to distinguish between the individual identity and the state they occupy. The individual identity is the Son of God. It is that I speak of you. It is that I speak of you or to you or speak of myself. I really mean our imagination. This is permanent. It fuses with the state and believes itself to be the state with which it is fused. But at every moment of time, it is free to choose the state with which it will be identified. And that brings us to today's subject, changing the feeling of I. And I hope I will not get the same reaction that is recorded in the 6th chapter of the Gospel of John. For we are told that when this was given to the world, they all left him, leaving just a handful behind. For when he told them there was no one to change but self, they said, this is a hard teaching. It's a hard thing. Who can hear it? For he said, no man cometh unto me, save I call him. And then it's recorded when he repeated it 3 times, they left him, never again to walk with him. And he turned to the few who remained and asked them, would you go also? And they answered and said, to whom would we go? You have the word of eternal life. In other words, it's so much easier when I can blame another for my misfortune, but now I am told that no man cometh unto me save I call him, that I am the sole architect of my fortunes and misfortunes. It's a difficult saying, and so it's recorded. It's a hard saying. Who can hear it? Who can grasp it? And who will believe it? And so he said, and now I sanctify myself, that they also be sanctified through the truth. For if this is the truth, then there is no one to change, no one to make whole, no one to purify, but self. And so we start with the I. Most of us are totally unaware of the self that we really cherish. We have never taken one good look at the self. So we don't know this self. For the I has neither face, form, nor figure, but it does mold itself into structure by all that it consents to, all that it believes, and few of us know really what we do believe. We have no idea of the unnumbered superstitions and prejudices that go to mold this inner, formless I into a form which is then projected as a man's environment, as the conditions of life. So here, read it carefully. When you go home, no man cometh unto me, save I call him. You didn't choose me, I have chosen you. No man can take away my life, I lay it down myself. There is no power to take from me anything that is part of the inner arrangement of my mind. All that you gave me I have kept, and none is lost save the son of perdition, or the belief in God. And because nothing can be lost but the belief in loss, I will not now assume loss of anything. you have given me that is good. And so I sanctify myself that they be sanctified through the truth. And now, how do we go about changing the I? First of all, we must discover the I. And we do this by an uncritical observation of self. This will reveal a self that will shock you. You will be altogether, I wouldn't say afraid, but ashamed to admit you've ever known such a lowly creature. Let me repeat the sentence. This will reveal a self that will shock you. You will be altogether, I wouldn't say afraid, but ashamed to admit you've ever known such a lowly creature. And had it been God himself who drew near in this despicable form, you would have denied him 1,000 times before a single cock would crow. You couldn't believe that this is the self that you've carried around and protected and excused and justified. Then you start changing this self after, by an uncritical observation, you make the discovery of that self. For the acceptance of self is the essence of the moral problem of the world. It is the epitome of a true outlook on life, for it is the sole cause of everything you observe. Your description of the world is a confession of the self that you do not know. You describe another, you describe society, you describe anything, and your description of the thing you observe reveals to one who knows this law the being that you really are. And let me tell you what, man, once you get here, when you hear people talk, you're just like, oh my. You're like looking at them and all their words are revealing this image. You point one finger away from themselves and 3 fingers back at themselves. And they don't hear one iota of the truth. They don't realize it. They're not aware of his word. So you must first accept that self. When that self is accepted, then you can start to change. It's so much easier to take the virtues of the gospel and apply them as the word of life, to love the enemy, to bless those who curse us, and to feed the hungry. But when man discovers the being to be fed, the being to be clothed, the being to be sheltered, the greatest enemy of all is that self, then he's ashamed, completely ashamed, that is the being, for it was easier to share with another something that I possess, to take an extra coat and give it to another. But when I know the truth, it's not that. I start with the self, having discovered, and start with change of that self. Now, let me tell you a story. A few years ago in this city, I was giving a series of lectures down near the lake. I can't even recall the name of the lake, but it was some Parkview Manor was the place where I spoke. And in that audience was a gentleman who sought an audience before the meeting. And we went across the street into the little park there, and he said to me that he had an insoluble problem. I said, there's no such thing as an insoluble problem. But he said, you do not know my problem. It's not a state of health, I assure you. It's a look at the skin that I wear. I said, what's wrong with it? It looks lovely to me. He said, look at the pigment of my skin. I, by the accident of birth, am now discriminated against. The opportunities for progress in this world are denied me just because of the accident of birth, that I was born a colored man. Opportunities for advancement in every field, neighborhoods that I would like to live in and raise a family, I couldn't move in. Where I would like to open up a business, I couldn't move into that area. Then I told him my own personal experience that I came to this country. Well, I didn't have that problem, but I was a foreigner in the midst of all Americans. I didn't find it difficult, yet as he reminded me, but that's not my problem, Neville. Others have come here speaking with an accent, but they haven't my skin, and I was born an American. Then I told him of an experience of mine in New York City. If I were called upon to name a man that I would consider my teacher, I would call him Abdullah. I studied with that gentleman for 5 years. He had the same color skin, the same pigment as this gentleman. He would never allow anyone to refer to him as a colored man. He was very proud of being a Negro, didn't want any modifications of what God had made him. He turned to me and said, have you ever seen a picture of the Sphinx? I said, yes. He said it embodies the four fixed quarters of the universe. You have the lion, the eagle, the bull, and the man. And here is man that is the head, the crown of that creature called the Sphinx, which still defies man's knowledge to unriddle it, was crowned with a human head. And look carefully at the head, Neville, and you will see whoever modeled that head must have been a Negro. Whoever modeled it had the face of a Negro, and if that still defies man's ability to unravel it, I am very proud that I am a Negro. I have seen scientists, doctors, lawyers, bankers from every walk of life seek an audience with old Abdullah, and everyone who came thought themselves honored to be admitted to his home and receive an interview. If he was ever invited out, and he was always the honored guest. He said, Neville, you must first start with self. Find self. Don't be ashamed ever of the being you are. Discover it and start the changing of that self. Well, I told this gentleman exactly what Abdullah had taught me, that there was no cause outside of the arrangement of his own mind. If he was discriminated against, it was not because of the pigment of his skin, though he showed me signs as large as all outdoors denying him access to a certain area. The sign is there only because in the minds of some men such patterns are formed, and they draw unto themselves what now they would condemn, that there is no power outside the mind of man to do anything to man. And he, by the arrangement of his own mind, by consenting to these restrictions in his cradle, and being conditioned slowly through his youth, walking into manhood, believing himself set upon, would have to be set upon, but no man cometh unto me save I call him. So then someone comes to condemn or to praise. They couldn't come unless I call them. Not a man called Neville, but that secret being that is not called Neville. The secret being that is the sum total of all of my beliefs, all of the things that I consent to, that form a pattern of structure. That secret being draws unto itself things in harmony with itself. Well, that man went away and wrestled with himself. He couldn't believe everything I told him, not that night, but last Sunday morning in the lobby, he came forward and we renewed the friendship. He took me next door to show me the fruit of this teaching. He said, Neville, it took me almost 3 years to really overcome that fixed idea that I, by the accident of birth, would be a secondary citizen, but I overcame it. Now here's my office on Wilshire Boulevard. I picked this one not because it was the only one offered. 4 equally wonderful spots were offered me. I took this one because it had greater telephone facilities, but the others were equally good. Now here's my office. Now you couldn't judge my income from this office, lovely as it is. Everything is nice about it. But Neville, this year I will get $250,000. Well, in America, that is still a fabulous sum of money. It would be staggering in any other part of the world, but even in fabulous America, a man to net $250,000 is really up in the very highest of brackets. Don't forget, we're talking about 1953. And that was the man that a few years ago told me the whole vast world was against him by reason of the accident of birth. He knows now he is what he is by virtue of the state of consciousness with which he is identified. And the choice is his to go back to the restrictions of his childhood when he believed the story, or to continue in the freedom that he has found. We know which one he chose. So you and I can be anything in this world we desire to be if we will clearly define our aim in life and constantly occupy that aim. It must be habitual. The concept we hold of self that is noble must not be put on just for a moment and taken off when we leave this church. We feel free here. We feel that we have something in common. That's why we are here. But we are going to wear the noble concept we now hold of self when we go through the door and enter that bus. Or are we going to return to the restrictions that were ours prior to coming here? The choice is ours. And the hardest lesson to learn is that there is no one in this world that can be drawn into your world unless you and you alone call him. So do not do what they did thousands of years ago, for that is the beginning of the cessation of the great truth. That is the beginning of the secession of the great truth. So we are told they turned away from it, never again to walk with it. And the few who remained didn't like it either. But where would they go if this is the word of eternal truth? Not that it's true for this day and age, but if this is the law of being, and in all the dimensions of my being it holds good, if this is eternally true, then let me learn the lesson now, though I wrestle with myself as he did for 3 years. That's what I'm saying to you. Let me learn the lesson now. You get this lesson now, you stop all other chicanery and tomfoolery, and you focus on this lesson, that you are the creator of your own reality by your imagination. Your imagination is Christ. Your imagination is God. Your imagination is all that is. Your imagination is the power that made you. Get this lesson down now, and all is yours. The entire kingdom is yours. This gentleman took 3 years. I'm at the beginning of my 4th year, so it took me 3 years. Don't count the 30 years preceding. It was Seth material, multiple metaphysical subjects, just like Neville, Ho'oponopono, deep study, deep teaching, deep longevity, practice, fail, over and over and over and over. Don't go the long route. Don't get in line behind me. Learn this lesson now. This is the ultimate lesson. I'm here to tell you, this is the cherry on the sundae. If this is the law of being, and in all the dimensions of my being it holds good, if this is eternally true, then let me learn the lesson now, though I wrestle with myself as he did for 3 years. So the changing of the feeling of I is a selective thing, because unnumbered states are infinite states. But the I is not the state. The I believes itself to be the state when it enters and fuses with it. So he was presented with a state, and without the faculty of discrimination in his youth, he fused with the state and believed these restrictions were true. And it took him 3 years to disentangle the I from these fixed ideas with which he had lived for so many years. Who cares if it takes 3 years? Who cares if it takes 2 years? Who cares if it takes 1 year? Who cares if it takes 5 years? You're here to learn this lesson. You are here to learn this lesson. Don't be confused. Stop what you're doing. Stop the bullshit. Stop the tomfoolery. Stop the chicanery. Focus. No one is coming to the rescue. There is no knight in white shining armor on a white horse. It's shining armor on a white horse. There's no rescue team. There's no Marvel squad. There's no Marvel nothing. It's you. This is all up to you. If you want to call yourself the superhero, it is befitting. You should be called that, because it is true. If you stop and learn this lesson now, then get on with the killing. The killing is figuratively a statement for the fun to be had. There's nothing but massive amounts of fun to be had. Stop and learn the lesson now. Go after yours. Now, you may take only a moment or two, may take your 3 years. I can't tell you how long it's going to take you, but I'll tell you this much. Again, I'm just over the 3-year mark. I'm in my 4th year now. It can be measured by the feelings of naturalness. But I'll tell you this much, Neville's saying, it can be measured by the feelings of naturalness. You can wear a feeling until it's natural. The moment the feeling becomes natural, it will begin to bear fruit within your world. That is a massive shortcut right there from the lips of Neville. Straight shortcut. That's a mic drop moment right there. You can start now from scratch and choose the being you want to be. You aren't going to change the pigment of your skin, but you will find your accent or the pigment of your skin or your so-called racial background will not be a hindrance. For if a man is ever hindered, it can only be the state of consciousness in which he abides that hinders him. Man is freed or constrained by reason of the state of mind in which he persists. If you persist in it, well, then I will say, persist in it. But I warn you, no one cares. And that is an awful blow when a man discovers that no one but himself really cares. That's why I keep repeating, nobody is coming to the rescue. No one's been called. It's not happening. It's up to you to choose your objective and get on with the killing. Choose your objective and move towards it. Simple. So we find ourselves weeping with ourselves in the hope of getting others to weep with us. And what an awful shock when the day arrives we discover no one really ever cared. They will give us some little listening ear for a moment just as they were passing by, but they really didn't care. When we make that discovery, we shake ourselves out of it and boldly appropriate the gift our Father gave us before that the world was. So let me show you the gift. You read your Lord's Prayer possibly daily, but you read it as a prayer from a translation of a translation, which does not reveal the sense of the evangelist. The real translation you will find in Farrer Fenton's work, where in the original it is written in the imperative passive mood, which is like a standing order, a thing to be done absolutely and continuously, so that you can look now upon your universe as one vast interknit machinery where all things happen. There isn't a thing to become. All things are taking place, so it is written in this manner. Thy will must be being done. Thy kingdom must be being restored. It is the only way you could express it if you would express the imperative passive mood. But from the Latin, from which our translation was made, there is no first aorist of the imperative passive mood. So we have it in the way we have it, but it does not reveal the intent of the mysteries. If you will see all things are now, you don't become, you simply select the state you would occupy. Big time! There is no past and there is no future. It is all now. In this one sentence, he sums up all of that idea in one quick sentence. Here it is. Clip this section and repeat it all night if you must. If you will see all things are now, you don't become, you simply select the state you would occupy. Nothing in the past is keeping you in that state. Nothing in the illusion of the future says you have to remain in that state. Nothing. You simply select the state that you would occupy. No one is going to do it for you. You must do it yourself. You will thank yourself later, big time. Occupying it, you seem to become, but it is already a fact. Every aspect of that state in its most minute detail, it's worked out and taking place. You, by occupying the state, seem to go through the action of unfolding that state, but the state is completely finished and taking place. So now you can choose the being you want to be, and by choosing a being other than what you are now expressing, you start the change of the feeling of I. I can't do it for you. I can guide. I can hold the lantern. That's what we're doing here. but you have to walk the steps. Now, how will I know that I have changed the feeling of I? By beginning first with an uncritical observation of my reactions to life, and then noticing my reactions when I think I'm identified with my choice. If I assume that I am the man that I want to be, let me observe my reactions. If they are as they were, I have not identified myself with my choice, for my reactions are automatic. And so if I am changed, I would automatically change my reactions to life. So the changing of the feeling of I results in a change of reaction, which change of reaction is a change of environment and behavior. But let me warn you now, you must perk up your ears. Neville's about to give a warning of sorts. A little alteration of mood is not a transformation. It's not a real change of consciousness. Because as I change my mood for the moment, it can quickly and rapidly be, I would say, replaced by another mood in the reverse direction. When I say that I was changed, as that gentleman changed his mood, his basic mood, his state of consciousness, it means that having assumed that I am what the moment denied, that what my reason denied, that I remain in that state long enough to make that state stable. So that all of my energies are flowing from that state. I am no longer thinking of that state, I'm thinking from that state. So that wherever a state grows so stable as to definitely expel all of its rivals, then that central habitual state of consciousness, from which I think defines my character and is really a true transformation or change of consciousness. Whenever I reach that state of stability, watch my world mold itself then in harmony with this inner change. And men will come into my world. People will come to aid, and they will think they are initiating the urge to help. They are only playing their part. They must do what they do because I have done what I did. Remember, the fruits of that state will show. Whatever state you occupy, you will beget the fruits of the state. Having moved from one state into the other, I have altered my relationship relative to the world roundabout. And that changed relationship compels a change in behavior relative to my world. So they have to act differently toward me. So in changing the I, you start with desire, which you will unfold and elaborate on tomorrow night, which we will unfold and elaborate on tomorrow night. For it starts with desire. Desire is the spring of action. For you must want to be other than what you are. We fail because we do not fall in love enough with an idea. We aren't, I would say, moved enough to want to be other than what we are. If I could get you to be completely in love with some state to the point where it haunted the mind, I could almost prophesy that you would, in the not distant future, externalize that state within your world. And the reason we fail, we aren't hungry enough to change. For either we do not know the law, or we haven't the urge or the hunger to really bring about the change. For the changing of the feeling of I results in a change of reaction, which change of reaction results in a change of world. If you like your world and you are complacent about it, you haven't started on the road of the mysteries, for the very first beatitude appeals to one who is not complacent. Blessed are the poor in spirit. You must be poor in spirit, not complacent, not satisfied. The man who thinks that by reason of birth, the religion that he inherited at birth is good enough for me, that he is not dissatisfied, he is not, I would say, moved. That being is complacent, and therefore he is not poor in spirit. He is very rich in spirit. Theirs is not the kingdom of God. For if I can stir you, make you dissatisfied with self, then you will recognize that self and set about to change it. For the only field of activity for man is within himself and on himself. You do not work on the other. The day you change self, that day you change your world. Now, I see my time is going to its quick end. And so in the remaining minute I have left here, let me not urge you, because if you come to the meeting tomorrow night, not really hungry, you wouldn't benefit. But I do hope that many of you are there. Even if you are stirred to the point of trying to, I would say, disprove what I told you. I would accept that challenge, for in the attempt to disprove it, I know if you were sincere in your attempt, you would prove it. So I hope many of you will come and take this feast with us. We are here in the city at the Ebel for 15 nights, Monday through Friday. As Mr. Smith told you, for 3 consecutive weeks. If you can't take all, and I do hope many of you will take all, then pick out the titles that appeal to you. Wow. 1953, Ebel Theater. That was the year this house was constructed that I'm sitting in right now. In some levels, the house seems so far in the distant past. But in some moments, as he's describing these 3 weeks, these 15 nights, I can see him as if they're right down the road. And I know the Ebel Theater is right down the road. I would just love to be there for these particular 15 nights in 1953. I'm going to go ahead and create that dream. If you can't take all, and I do hope many of you will take all, then pick out the titles that appeal to you. Tomorrow night, to me, is basic. It is the importance of defining an aim in this world, having a goal, for without an aim, you are aimless. And you were warned in the book, or I would say in the Epistle of James, that the double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Let not such a man believe that he shall receive anything of the Lord, for he is like a wave that is driven and tossed by the wind. End quote. That man never reaches his goal. So you must have an aim. And tomorrow night we will show you the importance of defining desire. There are certain schools who teach you to kill out desire. We teach you to intensify desire and show you the reason for such teaching. Show you what the Bible teaches about desire. And now we will come to the help of many of you. And now we will come to the help that many of you have asked for today. Those who were not here on Sunday, let me remind you, it's a very simple technique. As I told you on Sunday, anytime that you exercise your imagination and do it lovingly on behalf of another, you are mediating God to man. So we sit quietly and we simply become imitators of our Father. And He called the world into being by being the thing He would call. And so we sit and we listen as though we heard someone congratulating us on having found what we seek. So we go to the end of the matter and we listen just as though we heard, and we look as though we saw, and we try in this manner to feel ourselves right into the situation of our answered prayer. And there we wait in the silence just for about 2 minutes. And so we will lower the lights to aid you. And let me remind you, if you want to clear your throat, please do so. If you want to shift your position in the chair, do so. Feel as though you are alone at home, because if you don't, and you try not to disturb the neighbor, you will not be able to exercise your imagination on behalf of anyone. So now I will take the chair and simply listen attentively, just as though you heard. I'll make you this promise: the day you are still in mind, the day you are very still in mind, and really become attentive, you will hear as coming from without what really you are whispering from within yourself. Let us go into the silence. If you're able to, just close your eyes and just hear your friend congratulating you in total surprise, very, very happy for you, congratulating you on becoming the person you wish to become. They're so happy for you. And they're saying to you, I am so, so happy for you, excuse me. I love it so much. You look so beautiful. You look so radiant. I am so happy for you. Congratulations. Congratulations. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Thank you. Hug. Hug. High five. Smiles all around. You can pause it. You can continue the silence. Take 2 minutes of straight silence. After you pause it, go there. Hear them. Just do it. Just do it. No one else is coming to do it for you. This is up to you. This is kind of like that Ferris Bueller moment. Are you still here? Come on. Do it.